dance and film blend to tell the story of vacant spaces in Ghost Factory, the next performance from UTC Live on our campus, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. It happens Friday, starting at 7 p.m. in the Roland Hayes Concert Hall at UTC's Fine Arts Center, where there will also be a video installation in the lobby before and after the show as part of the experience. Ghost Factory, presented by Bridgman Packer Dance, led by Art Bridgman and Myrna Packer, is inspired by residents and deserted factories in Johnson City, a town in upstate New York, and Chattanooga. I spoke with Art and Myrna a few weeks ago. Art, Myrna, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ray.
Thank you. Great to talk with you.
Tell us more about Bridgman Packer Dance.
It's a collaboration between myself, Myrna Packer, and Art Bridgman. What people see on stage is a result of a very long and deep artistic conversation between the two of us. We collaborate on the concept of our work, on the choreography, and in the performance. Our work has a unique genre that we've been developing, which is the integration of our live performance with video technology. So on stage, you will see projections, often of ourselves, often life-size, so that we actually multiply on stage. And I can dance with Art live, and I also can dance with his image. I can dance with my own image. There are times that there might be 20 of our images on stage. 2 of them are live and others are virtual. And in terms of Ghost Factory, those images are metaphors for the lives spent in these factories and of their stories that might be hidden in the walls.
This is inspired by residents of Johnson City in upstate New York, home to deserted factories, but there's also a Chattanooga ingredient to all this.
Yes. In addition to many interviews we had with former factory workers in upstate New York, we realized that there was kind of a universality of life experience, regardless of where you live in the country. And when we travel with this show, we like to interview individuals from the local town where we perform and ask about their experience working in factories. And so we have several people in the Chattanooga area who worked at the combustion engineering firm, at Duracell, at Wayland Foundry. There are a number of places where we interviewed and were able to get interviews of former factory workers from the Chattanooga area and bring them into this project.
And that was with the great help of Bob Boyer, who is the director of the series. He found these people, identified them, and did the interviews. And we're also including his beautiful photography of the old buildings. We really like that parallel that happens of people's experiences across the country, but also specifically the human stories connected with architecture. In this case, it's the architecture of the industries and what happens to that architecture when the industry leaves. Does it go into decay? Is it repurposed? But most interesting to us are the human stories involved, the individual human stories. So when we first saw these old deserted factories upstate New York, our imagination started going, what stories, what lives were spent there? So we were able to interview probably up to 45, 50 people from that town. Some of them had worked in the factories, some of them, their parents or grandparents had worked in the factories, and some had grown up in a post-industrial town with those factories as the backdrop of their lives. And that kind of history over decades of stories upon stories upon stories really excited us. So some of their voices are woven through the soundtrack of the stage work. They're layered, kind of like a collage, a sound collage. They're distilled, their voices, over a beautiful original musical composition by Ansel Babro. We realized that we loved that collage effect in the sound of the stage work, but we also wanted to give more weight to their actual stories. So that then became the idea to have a lobby installation where it's more of the actual oral histories of the people both from Johnson City and then, as Art mentioned, from each place where we perform.
What's one story of all the stories that you've heard that has touched you the most?
It's Julie Dino from Johnson City, New York. She was interviewed when she was 98. She is now 102. She was remembering in detail her experience of working in the shoe factory when she was in her early 20s and how difficult it was to keep up the pace because the conveyor belt was moving and she had to finish her part of the shoe to get it back on the conveyor belt in time. And if she didn't, the older workers would get mad at her. And then she talked about her two best friends, how they would go out to lunch together, how her friend Mary would walk across the railroad tracks in her high heels to go to lunch. And I just loved that image. So her voice is prominent throughout the stage work. And she's also in the installation talking on her rocking chair on her front porch. There's a section of Ghost Factory that I perform that's all to her voice. And I feel like I somehow, at least I attempt to embody her story. And the poignancy, she says over and over again, she says, they're all gone, all gone. And she's referring to her dear friends who worked there. Her husband had worked there. Also the buildings, that time, all gone.
That interview was especially poignant. There were a number of people who talked about this is a shoe factory where things move quickly. And this corporation made 50 million pairs of shoes a year. They supplied most of the military for World War II, the boots and so forth, World War II. It was a big operation with up to, I think, 20 large factory buildings in one little town. So it was a big operation. One of them, actually, a woman talked about her father who had some digits missing because of the stamp presses on these machines. You have to be very careful when they're cutting the leather to keep your fingers out of the stamping device. Apparently, there were many situations where people would lose a digit here and there. And she just told stories about sitting at dinner with her father, and her father would kind of point to somewhere, and then he'd realize his finger wasn't there. It took him a while to adjust to the injury he sustained in the factory. And then also that there were just no OSHA rules at the time. It was just part of the agreement was just do the best you can. And this company really tried to take care of people if they got injured. But injuries did occur quite a bit in those days. We're talking about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then there are just some really wonderful community stories about people really connecting with each other, and that there was a real sense of togetherness and love of people who worked in your own factory. And we felt that told us a lot about how when you have a job that's usually like a lifetime job for many of these, your working family becomes another family, which is very important and is meaningful.
We're speaking with Art Bridgman and Myrna Packer of Bridgman Packer Dance, which presents Ghost Factory at UTC Live, Friday night here on our campus, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. You have collaborated in choreography and performance since 1978. How did that begin? How did you arrive at what you call video partnering, which we will see on display here at UTC?
We met dancing in a few different companies in New York City, and we immediately had a connection with each other and started choreographing together and developing what we value. A lot of that is exploring the human experience. What is this thing that we are all doing, going through life, being a human being? And so our work through the first, I would say, half of our careers together had a lot to do with physical partnering, and that was a metaphor for the push and pull in relationship. And in each of the works, we would explore that in different ways and exploring different topics. But again, coming back to the human experience. And I say that is different from choreography that is more interested in abstract form. There's always abstract form in dance. And for us, it is how do we use that to say something about our experience? So about 20 years ago, it was right around the time that video cameras and projectors on a consumer level were becoming more affordable. And we either borrowed or bought our first one, I can't remember, and started experimenting with it. I was the one who resisted the whole idea. I felt that what I had seen at that point of video on stage, I found distracting. That as an audience, I had to choose between watching the dancers or watching the video, and it would minimize the size of the dancers in contrast to the video. But one day, Art went into our studio and he filmed himself and projected himself life-size. And he called me out behind where we live and said, come look at this. And he was projecting his life-size image and he was stepping in and out of it. And the creative light bulbs went off in my mind, and I saw what technology could do to help us say, with a new palette, a lot of what we had been saying about relationship to self. I saw him fracturing off of himself. I saw, right, visually a metaphor for different sides of oneself. And I also saw the question of what is real and what is image, which becomes more and more and more important in how we're living today with the amount of screens that we are looking at all the time and questioning what is our reality and what is AI and what was the thought I just had. All of those questions about really what is reality becomes visual when we are interacting with our video images or with an environment. So, for example, in Ghost Factory, we filmed ourselves in the old deserted factories. We got permission to go in there. And so that's projected on stage. And as live performers, we're partnering not only with our own images, but we're partnering with those environments. In each piece that we made since that moment that I was describing in our studio, which was about 20 years ago, we've made about 10 major works on different topics, and each one explores in a different way this interaction of the live and the virtual. And some of the video projections are pre-recorded and edited, and some are live cameras on stage. So our live image gets projected. Sometimes it is simultaneously computer processed, so we can create a time delay of our own image, almost like a Canon, a visual Canon. We can also have the images transformed. So there are moments in Ghost Factory where the images get transformed into just the outline of our bodies, which is very ghost-like, kind of translucent. So our choreography encompasses the movements that we are doing live on stage, but also the choreography that we do on video, and also the choreography of how all of those fit together into one piece on stage.
We really try to immerse ourselves into the projections. For instance, we have a see-through scrim that we hang on stage, and we can perform in front of it. And when the light is on us, you can see us behind it. And when there's a projection on the scrim and you see us behind the scrim, we actually blend right into it. We're immersed into the projection. And I think that that's a really wonderful way of doing two things, creating an environment and then interacting with that environment. But it also feels like to the audience as if we're coming out of the walls of these buildings. Therefore, that sense of ghost factory. There are ghost factories and there are abandoned factory buildings. And so that has a kind of unusual quality to it, but also the fact that we sometimes are the ghosts coming out of those factories. And I think that the show that we're doing at UTC on the 28th really blends these different elements. The video projections, live performance, video processing, where we have cameras recording us live on stage and then processing our images in many different ways.
For more information on the show here at UTC and the installation alongside, people can visit calendar.utc.edu and search for Ghost Factory. It takes place on Friday, March 28th, starting at 7 p.m. The installation will be open at 7 p.m. The performance is at 7:30 p.m. For more information about Bridgman Packer Dance, where can people go online?
To our website, bridgmanpacker.org, or to our Instagram page, Bridgman Packer Dance, or our Facebook page, Bridgman Packer Dance. We will come out to the lobby after the performance to greet people and answer any questions. And the installation will also be active after the performance.
We're very excited to be coming to Chattanooga and sharing our work with the Chattanooga community. Ghost Factory is a wonderful, exciting show. We hope you get to see it.
All right. Myrna, Art, thanks so much.
Thank
you, Ray. Have a beautiful day.